Dear Toastmasters, hello! Today we are going to have another wonderful and very interesting interview with our guest from the Czech Republic. Lukas, nice to meet you in Moscow.
Hi Kristina, I'm very happy to be here.
How do you feel after your flight, after your almost night flight?
Well, the flight was smooth, and so I arrived very, very late at night. But yeah, I feel very good. There was so many lights throughout the whole night. It looks like the city never sleeps.
Sometimes, we have a song called Moscow Never Sleeps.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now I know what that song's about.
About Moscow, actually, that never sleeps. Okay, Lukas, so let's speak a bit about your Toastmaster experience.
All right.
Please tell me briefly about your both leadership experience and your speaker experience. Mm-hmm. And what do you prefer and do you like more?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I joined Toastmasters 6.5 years ago, and I joined because I actually did like public speaking already. I just didn't have any audience. So I joined Toastmaster to have some people who would listen to me. And therefore, I started competing because I wanted to get better at speaking. And interestingly, after I became district officer, that I could not compete anymore, I had even more and more opportunities for speeches. Because, when you are area director, you're responsible for 4, 5, or 6 clubs. And therefore, you need to motivate them. You need to find a way how to explain them things. And what's better way to do that than giving presentations? And then in my eyes, there is no, like some people make distinguish, or you want to become a speaker or you will become a leader. But in my eyes, these two are the same. It's the same track. Because if you are a leader, you have more opportunities to become a better speaker. And if you want to be a great leader, you need to be able to speak.
So it's very interesting because here in Russia, I would say that we're all thinking about two separate things. I mean, the leadership experience and the speaking experience.
Yeah.
So for you, it's like two things which are very connected, and it's impossible to separate them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think there was even an interview with Deepak Menon, the president-elect of Toastmasters International, and he says the same thing. Like, if you want to become a leader, you need to be a good speaker. Of course, there's one aspect, that's the contests. And as a district officer, you cannot compete, but then you can come to Moscow and compete here.
Of course. That's why Lukas will be one of the participants of the international speech contest, which we'll have in the framework of our Winter Conference 2018. Okay, Lukas, and this is a very special question I would like to ask you.
Okay.
So, have you ever had a moment of the Toastmaster crisis? Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a desire to leave the Toastmaster community?
Mm-hmm. So the short answer to your question is no. Well, but...
Okay, then I will have another question, a very special one, the second special one. Uh-huh. So, what is your personal motivation?
Yeah.
What inspires you?
Yeah, and I think it links also to your previous question. The important thing for me in Toastmaster is I always had 2 types of reasons why I did that. I always had the short-term reason, like the instant gratification, because as I told you, I joined because I wanted to speak, to have audience. I liked the attention, and I like the idea of entertaining people, making them laugh, and sharing some experience. And you get that immediately whenever you give a speech, evaluation, and you get it any time in a Toastmaster meeting. But also, I always had the second reason, and that was kind of long-term development goal. And always when I was in Toastmasters, I knew that I'm working on improving my skills, a particular set of skills. Actually, before Toastmasters, I had another hobby. I was playing StarCraft 2, a computer game, a real-time strategy, online. And it was so much fun and amazing. I could improve myself. I spent 5 days every working day playing StarCraft, and 12 hours or 5 hours every working day playing StarCraft, 12 hours every weekend day. But then after 5 months, I was thinking, okay, but 5 years from now, where is this taking me? So I quit that. I decided, okay, let's see a place where I can combine improving my skills for my career and have good fun. And then I joined Toastmaster. And that's why I never left, because every year I had a new leadership role. I was learning from membership, education, president, and then the district officer roles, and I kept learning new things, and I like that.
So do you think that sometimes we should stop taking the officer positions, or we should do it like every year being an officer?
Mm-hmm. And that's a fair question. I think at some point in your life you might come to the decision like you're just doing things because that's the next step in the ladder, without actually thinking, without taking a break and thinking, okay, what is the best thing I can do right now? So I think at some point of time there might come such moment where you just want to have a break. I don't think I would ever quit Toastmasters altogether, but I think it's possible because until now I always just took the next step. I never skipped any, I didn't go for any jumps, but I always took the next step. And it might be that sometimes in the future I will just take a break, become an ordinary member for a year to get a perspective and then come back in leadership a little bit later.
And do you think that other Toastmasters, members of your clubs, are some kind of inspiration for you?
Oh, definitely. So my first ultra mentor was Peter Havel. He was member of Prague Business Toastmasters, the club that started when I joined, and he's like magical guy. So when he has magical blue eyes, and when he looks at you while he speaks, you get shivers through your body. Yes, he's that good. And another super skill of his is he's able, to create a speech within 5 minutes. So before the meeting, Peter, can you give a speech in the meeting? Our speaker can't. He said, yeah, give me 5 minutes. He shuts down some notes on paper and he gives it. When I saw him do this, 3-4 months after beginning Toastmasters, I like, wow, when I grow up, I want to be like this guy. So he really motivated me to work hard.
So do you think that being a mentor is extremely important and having a mentor is even more important?
Yes, and I think what's interesting to or important to understand, it works both ways. So when you get a mentor, you get somebody who motivates you, pushes you further, shows you the way. But when you are a mentor, you have to think about all these things you're doing that you haven't thought, you were just doing them, but then you need to explain them to somebody else. And just the fact that you need to explain them forces you to think about them in a little bit different way, understand them better, and also prepare yourself maybe to share even for bigger audiences. So mentoring is great, and I really like that about Toastmasters.
Lukas, and tell me please about the Toastmasters' impact on your working process. So how do you incorporate your Toastmaster experience while you're working?
So I think there are 3 levels to answer the question. The first one, I think, as everyone who experienced Toastmasters for at least a couple of months, it kind of makes you more relaxed about yourself, more confident to sharing your ideas, because you're in a group of people who are very willing to accept your ideas. They accept you for who you are. They don't tell you, oh, don't talk like this and be more quiet. Which sometimes in the corporations or in the professional world, we get that, right? Especially if we join as fresh graduates. We get managers, some of them are very strict, and they kind of try to square us into a specific place. So that's one. I gained more confidence, and therefore I was more open to suggest my own ideas for whatever I did. The second part, in the company I work for currently, it's MSD, it's American pharma company. We do have a corporate Toastmasters club. So I use Toastmasters at work because at work, yeah. No,
wonderful.
It is pretty cool, I can tell you that. And yeah, so every week we have a meeting on Wednesday lunchtime between 12 and 1. So there are many colleagues come and then I can help them, or of course not just me, there are many people who are on the club, and help them become better speakers, communicators and leaders. And the third, and I think that's the part that I like the most, in Toastmasters, after I became district officer, I started doing quite a lot of trainings for other district officers in conferences, coming to a conference like this one, traveling around Europe. But it was all, hobby workshops. But then 1.5 years ago, I kind of heard the discussions of the top management in our IT hub in Prague. And somebody said, oh, these external trainers, they are so expensive. So I said, how about, I do trainings on the weekends. Maybe I can do some trainings during the working week in the company.
So the way it works, really.
Yeah, really it does. Well, they said, if you think so. And so I gave the first workshop, and it was very popular. And therefore I was doing more workshops, and now the company sends me to travel around the world to give workshops. In January I go to Singapore, in September I was in Austin. So like that way Toastmasters really worked for me because they helped me combine doing what I like and work.
It's fantastic. It's really fantastic. It's another answer of our on the question of our Russian Toastmasters, how the Toastmaster organization helps us to become better. So this is the answer.
It certainly is one of the answers, yes.
And Lukas, tell me please, you say that your special skill is staying calm when others panic.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your main advice to avoid this kind of panic?
Well, it's like with any skill, like when you want to go and give a presentation to 100 or 300 people, first expose yourself to the situations when you would panic. And when I say that, I started my work as management consultant in Accenture, and I can tell you there were quite a few stressful situations where people were shouting at each other, people were shouting at me, and in general people were shouting. Well, and in the beginning I got a little bit nervous about that, but of course I was way more nervous about that. But then at some point I realized, okay, the panic is not a solution, right? So I just try to take a step back. But it's easier said than done. I think the first step is like when you want to get more relaxed speaking in front of people, you just do it and you focused on improving it.
Okay, and another question, talking about your trainings, personal trainings, do you see some elements of the educational Toastmaster program while you are preparing for the next training and work?
So it's not directly the elements of the Toastmasters program. Maybe for the presentation skills training, when I ask people to give feedback to each other, I always ask them to start with the positive things and then follow with the suggestions. But I think that's not, let's say, Toastmasters copyrighted. But how I use Toastmasters in developing my trainings is I still take Toastmasters as a gym for the mind. And when you go for table topics, you need to quickly answer on the spot. And also the speeches, I take it as an outlet to test my ideas. So for example, I read something in a book, I might have an idea as how to explain or how to organize a meeting, for example. And then I schedule a speech in Toastmaster Club, I present this idea to the club. Just by the fact I had to present it to an audience, I think about it in a different way. And then from these 20 people in the room, I get feedback who tell me, oh, Lukas, I didn't really get this, and this is wrong, this doesn't make any sense. And it's a lot better to get that feedback in a Toastmasters Club than at work when giving the workshop.
Wow, it's really fantastic. So we can take a note for ourselves to try to do something in the same way while
definitely.
we are prepared. So thank you. No, it's a good advice.
Yeah.
So avoid panic is the first advice, and the second advice, just try your ideas on the public of the Toastmasters.
Yes. Way
so
to
Lukas,
go.
thank you so much for this interview, and one more time, welcome to Moscow.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you.